History books are filled with the legends of Rome, the might of the Mongols, and the globe-spanning reach of the British Empire. We're taught that these were the giants, the undisputed heavyweights of their time. But that's not the whole story, is it? What if I told you that for every empire we remember, there's another one lurking in the shadows of history? A titan that came within a single battle, a fateful decision, or just a bit of bad luck of total domination, only to be mostly forgotten. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 5 of these forgotten empires. What you're about to hear might just change the way you see the past. Section 1. The Carthaginian Empire, the empire that almost broke Rome. Our story starts not in the marbled halls of Rome, but across the Mediterranean in North Africa, in the glittering port city of Carthage. By the 3rd century BCE, Carthage wasn't just a city, it was a maritime superpower. This was a commercial empire built on trade, not just conquest, and its ships controlled the western Mediterranean like it was their own private lake, carrying Spanish silver and African ivory. While Rome was still figuring itself out as a land power, Carthage was already a globalized force with legendary wealth. This empire of merchants had a military to match, relying on skilled mercenaries and, crucially, a navy that was second to none. But its greatest weapon was one man, Hannibal Barca. In 218 BCE, he did the impossible. He marched his army, wore elephants and all, across the frozen Alps to attack Rome on its home turf. For years, he ran circles around every Roman army they sent at him. This all leads to a moment where history itself seemed to hold its breath, the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE. On that day, Hannibal, with a smaller army, faced the largest military force Rome had ever put together. Using sheer tactical brilliance, he pulled off a double envelopment, a pincer movement that swallowed the massive Roman legions and completely annihilated them. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed in a single afternoon. Rome was on its knees, its allies were starting to jump ship, and the path was open for Hannibal to march on the city. So why didn't he? Historians still debate it. He lacked proper siege equipment, his supply lines were stretched thin, and the reinforcements he desperately needed from the hesitant Carthaginian Senate never came. But had things gone just a little differently, the world we know might be speaking Punic instead of a Latin-based language. Rome, however, regrouped with a terrifying resilience. The war was eventually taken back to Africa, and Hannibal was finally defeated. Rome didn't just win, it made sure Carthage would be forgotten, razing the city to the ground in 146 BCE and burying its legacy. Section 2, the Achaemenid Kingdom, the gatekeepers of the ancient world. While Carthage was crumbling, a totally different kind of power was rising deep in the highlands of modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Around the 1st century CE, the kingdom of Achaemen emerged as a crucial player in the global economy. Though it's less famous than Rome or Persia, Achaemen was a powerhouse that sat right at the crossroads of Africa, Arabia, and India. Its main port, Adulis, was a bustling hub on the Red Sea, connecting the Roman Empire with the untold riches of the East. Ivory, gold, and exotic animals flowed out of Africa, while silk and spices from Asia passed through Achaemenid hands. Achaemen wasn't just some middleman, it was a massively sophisticated civilization. It minted its own gold coins, a sure sign of wealth and international standing, and developed its own script, Ge'ez. Towering stone obelisks, or stelae, carved from a single piece of rock, soared into the sky over its capital. Then, in the 4th century, King Ezana made a bold move and converted the kingdom to Christianity, creating a powerful link with the Byzantine Empire. At its height, Achaemen projected its power across the Red Sea, one of the most important commercial highways of the ancient world. It sent military expeditions into southern Arabia, and effectively became the gatekeeper of Indian Ocean trade. If Achaemen had managed to fully lock down these sea routes, it could have starved its rivals and become the undisputed economic master of 3 continents. But empires built on trade are vulnerable when trade routes shift. The rise of the Persian Sasanian Empire, and later the Islamic caliphates, began to redirect commerce, bypassing oxen. That, combined with environmental changes at home, caused the kingdom's power to fade. Its ports grew quiet, and this great connector of worlds slowly receded into the mountains, its global ambitions vanishing like a ship over the horizon. Section 3. The Khwarezmian Empire, the empire that angered the wrong Khan. Fast forward to the early 13th century. The Khwarezmian Empire was a titan of the Islamic world. This vast Turco-Persian state dominated the legendary Silk Road, controlling the flow of goods and ideas across Central Asia. From its dazzling cities of Samarkand and Gurganj, it ruled over what is now Iran, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. It had a massive army and wealth that could rival any kingdom on earth. For a moment there, it was arguably the most powerful state between the Mediterranean and China. Its ruler, Shah Ala al-Din Muhammad II, was feeling pretty good about things. But in 1218, a fateful encounter changed everything. A new power was rising in the east, the Mongols. Their leader, Genghis Khan, wanted to establish a trade agreement and sent a caravan of merchants to the Khwarezmian city of Utra. The city's governor, a relative of the Shah, got greedy. He accused the merchants of being spies, executed the entire caravan, and seized all their goods. Genghis Khan, who considered diplomats and envoys sacred, was surprisingly patient. He sent 3 more envoys to the Shah, simply asking for the governor to be handed over for punishment. In an act of unbelievable arrogance, the Shah had the lead envoy executed, and had the beards of the other 2 shaved off, a sign of deep humiliation, before sending them back. It was quite possibly the deadliest insult in history. What happened next wasn't a war, it was an apocalypse. An enraged Genghis Khan unleashed the full, terrifying might of the Mongol hordes on the Khwarezmian Empire in 1219. An empire the Shah thought was invincible collapsed in just 2 years. The Mongols moved with horrifying speed and brutality, razing cities, destroying irrigation canals, and slaughtering millions. The Khwarezmian Empire wasn't just defeated, it was literally wiped off the map. Its story was completely swallowed by the opening act of the Mongol conquests, a terrifying lesson in what happens when you poke the wrong bear. The stories of these lost empires show just how fragile power can be. If you're finding these hidden histories as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more tales that the history books left out. And let me know in the comments, what's another forgotten empire you think deserves the spotlight? Section 4. The Wari and Tiwanaku. The Andean empires before the Incas. Long before the Inca built their famous empire high in the Andes, 2 other powers laid the groundwork for a unified South American state. From around 600 to 1100 CE, the Wari and Tiwanaku civilizations dominated the highlands of modern-day Peru and Bolivia. Now, these weren't partners. They were distinct, powerful rivals who coexisted, competed, and in the process, pioneered many of the imperial innovations the Inca would later perfect. The Tiwanaku, centered around the stunning Lake Titicaca, were masters of monumental architecture and religious influence. Their rituals and art style spread far and wide, making their capital a pilgrimage site for people across the Andes. The Wari, based further north, were the military engineers and administrators. They built a sprawling network of provincial capitals, connecting them with an extensive road system, the blueprint for the great Inca road network to come. They were also experts in terraced agriculture, which allowed them to support huge cities in the harsh mountain environment, including a capital that may have housed up to 50,000 people. Together, but separately, these 2 cultures represented the first great experiment in large-scale Andean empire building. They figured out how to integrate diverse landscapes, from the arid coast to the high mountains, into a single economic system. You have to wonder, if the Wari had conquered the Tiwanaku, or vice versa, they could have formed a continent-spanning empire centuries before the Inca. They had the roads, the administration, and the agricultural tech to do it. But it wasn't meant to be. Around the 11th century, both civilizations began to collapse, likely due to a deadly combination of severe droughts and internal conflicts. Their great cities were abandoned and their empires broke apart, leaving a power vacuum in the Andes. They became the forgotten first draft of an Andean empire, a blueprint for power that would lie dormant until their more famous successors picked it up. Section 5, the Yuan dynasty, the Mongol conquest of the seas. We all know the Mongol Empire as the largest contiguous land empire in history. But what if that was just phase 1? After Genghis Khan's death, his grandson, Kublai Khan, did something no one had ever done. He conquered all of China and, in 1271, established his own dynasty, the Yuan. For the first time, a so-called barbarian was sitting on the dragon throne, with all the immense resources, technology, and manpower of China at his command. From his grand capital, modern-day Beijing, Kublai Khan ruled an empire that stretched from the plains of Europe to the Pacific Ocean. But his ambition didn't stop at the water's edge. He looked east, to Japan, a nation that had stubbornly refused to submit. So, he decided to launch one of the largest naval invasions the world had ever seen. Twice, in 1274, and again in 1281, Kublai Khan assembled enormous fleets. The second invasion force was made up of an astonishing 4,400 ships, and an estimated 140,000 soldiers and sailors, an amphibious force of a scale rarely seen before the modern era. The goal was clear: bring all of Asia under Mongol rule. If Japan fell, it's easy to imagine that colossal navy, a combination of Mongol ambition and Chinese shipbuilding, being aimed at Southeast Asia and maybe even further. A Mongol maritime empire stretching across the Pacific was a very real possibility. But twice, fate, in the form of weather, had other plans. On both occasions, as the Mongol fleets waited off the coast of Japan, a massive typhoon slammed into them, annihilating the invasion force. Ships were smashed to bits, and tens of thousands of warriors drowned. The Japanese called the storms divine winds, or kamikaze, believing their gods had protected them. Those winds didn't just save Japan, they marked the high water mark of Mongol expansion. The dream of a trans-Pacific Mongol empire died in the storm, its epic navy now just a ghost fleet at the bottom of the sea. So, from the shores of North Africa to the highlands of Peru, history is littered with the ghosts of empires that came a hair's breadth away from reshaping the world. A hesitant general in Italy. A subtle shift in global trade. A catastrophic insult to a powerful Khan. A 1,000-year drought in the Andes. And 2 perfectly timed typhoons. Sometimes, that's all that separates the world we have from a completely different one. These stories remind us that the map of the world was never a foregone conclusion. It was drawn, erased, and redrawn by victors, victims, and sometimes, just plain luck. So which of these empires do you think came closest to ruling the world? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another look at the lost chapters of history.